want to thank you for making it a priority to be here. I get to talk about my favorite topic and my life's passion, the practice of being love. I also want to acknowledge the many people who couldn't be here today, my family and other loved ones who've helped shape me and shape my understanding and my experience of love. And I hold them in my heart today to be present with us. I'd also encourage you to think about all the people that you love and bring their presence into the room with us today too. Love is perhaps one of the most frequently spoken words, while also one of the most difficult to define. The Greek language distinguishes the spectrum of love with as many as 30 different words. Poets, songwriters, philosophers, and spiritual leaders have attempted to capture its essence for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Yet despite all that, love eludes a definition that encompasses its fullness. The simplest concept is that there are two fundamental emotions, love and fear. All other emotions are either extensions of love or fear, and the two cannot coexist. I believe there's only one emotion, that there's only love, and that fear is simply the denial or the obstruction of love, the absence of love. After all, isn't darkness the absence of light? As Longfellow wrote in his poem Rainy Day, behind the clouds is the sun still shining. The sun is always present, though our view of it may be obstructed by clouds. At night, the skies appear completely dark because the earth spins on its axis away from the light of the sun. Light and dark cannot coexist, just as love and fear cannot coexist. In any moment, we have a choice to face love or to turn our backs on it, or we lose faith in it when the clouds temporarily block our view. When we shine light into the darkness ceases to exist. In my experience, it's the same with love. When we shine the light of love onto our fears, they disappear. When love is present, there is no room for fear to coexist. So our first challenge in living a life of love is to turn toward the light and embrace it. I'd like you to imagine the presence of love as that universal energy that connects us all, our natural state of being when fear is not present. Imagine love as the air around us and within us that fills our lungs. Picture it as a light that we breathe in. We don't have to do anything to demonstrate or prove that it exists. Love simply is. Our lives depend on it, just as we need to draw in a certain amount of breath to survive. We can decide to take deeper, healing breaths. We can also choose the intention and energy that we give to our out breath as we send it into the space around us that others will be breathing in. It's up to us whether we breathe in enough air purely for survival, or whether we allow it to light up our entire being with each breath until we are filled with light, until every breath we breathe out into the world is pure love. The Indian spiritual master Meher Baba wrote, "True love is unconquerable and irresistible, and it goes on gathering power and spreading itself until eventually it transforms everyone whom it touches." This is the presence of love, what I mean by being love. Love is not simply an emotion or a series of actions. It's not a search for another to complete us. It's a way of being. The presence of love is always there, whether we choose to embrace it or turn away from it. It's always within us, yearning to be turned inward to fill our entire being so it can flow, be felt, and be shared. I've spent my life studying love, living it, practicing being as loving as I know to be, as well as dreaming of the kind of love I want to share in my life. But the concept and a key component to my practice of being love began with a simple question that presented itself to me at just the time I needed some guidance for how to show up for a difficult conversation I had last fall. I was about to leave my house to have the conversation, and the question presented itself to me. What would love do? It spoke to me in a profound way and jolted me into a different way of showing up in that situation. As a result, I was able to heal the wounds from that relationship and keep my heart open. That was the day the seed was planted for the book that I'm writing called The Practice of Being Loved. Most of us are familiar with the What Would Jesus Do movement, but the question, what would love do, resonated with me even more. It feels like a broader question than imitating the actions of Jesus. I practice and I try to remind myself every day, as often as I can, to ask, if love shows up in this situation, how would I have to be to exemplify that? It's not so much about doing as it is about being when I ask myself, what would love do? How can I show up with love flowing through me as the very presence of love? Rumi said, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you've built against it. What keeps us from breathing the fullness of love, keeping our hearts wide open, and letting it fill our entire beings, and then breathing it out to share with all around us with complete trust that there will be enough for our next breath. Identifying and remaining present to the barriers to love, to our fears and action and to our inaction, and the ways we try to hide and protect ourselves from being hurt or disappointed. This is our life's work to practice. It's a work we courageously return to again and again as part of the human experience, to identify the dark places that keep us from experiencing love fully, and to choose love over and over and yet again. As we do the work to identify our fears and shine a light on them, I'll suggest a place to start looking. The single most common fear that I've heard from every person I've ever met is that we're not worthy of being loved. What logically follows for most of us are various ways of shutting down, of hiding, or building walls to avoid the pain of rejection, abandonment, and loss. As an example of one place to look, I'll share my story of unworthiness and the practice that has made the most impact in my life to create the space for love to flow freely. Most of us had, or if you're younger, you likely will have, stories of the ways our parents hurt us or disappointed us or made our lives more difficult that would carry into adulthood. Being a parent is a hard job, and all parents make mistakes. We also tend to have unrealistic expectations of our parents and forget that they too are practicing. I had a story about my dad that I believed for most of my life, that he abandoned me, that I wasn't important enough to him or worth his effort to maintain a relationship after my parents divorced. We didn't have any contact for 27 years. He had his own story of rejection, and we were both afraid to reach across that divide and connect. About 2 years ago, I was in a class and had the realization that the story I'd been holding on to about my dad was just that. It was a story, and it was a story that I made up. My dad never told me that I was unlovable, that he didn't love me, or that I wasn't worth his time. It was I who decided, based on his actions or inaction and his mistakes, that's the meaning that it had for me. I summoned the courage to call my dad and apologize. I took responsibility for the story that I'd made up about him, that I decided that I was unlovable and that I'd been blaming him for it. I also forgave him for what he did or didn't do that was hurtful to me. And it was scary to make that call, to pick up the phone and dial and make the call, but it was also so simple to do. It was so simple that when I hung up the phone with him, I looked at my cell phone and saw that we had talked for 13 minutes. In a 13-minute conversation, I erased 27 years of feeling unlovable, and it really was that simple. I felt the weight lifted, I felt free, and I knew that I was worth it. Now, my dad and I are connected. I was able to celebrate his 37th wedding anniversary with my stepmom and reconnect with his stepsister and her husband. We talk about it every week or two on the phone. We connected, substantial conversation with laughter and with ease. We have a relationship that was never going to happen if I didn't make that 13-minute phone call. I had to learn to love myself, and as long as I believed that my own father couldn't even love me, I felt incomplete as a person and lacking in some way. In 13 minutes, I got free of that belief that I'd been hanging on to for 27 years. I realized that I had stories, similar stories, in my failed relationships and a couple of friendships that I had let go due to hurt feelings, to misunderstandings, and fear. So I decided to do the same thing in any relationship I had that felt incomplete, to reach out, to apologize, to take responsibility for what I'd created in those relationships. As a result, one of the friends who's now in my life is one of the best friends I've ever had, and the confidant that I turn to when life gets challenging. And I also have a connected, fulfilling relationship with my ex-wife and her daughter. Not all the conversations I had resulted in reconnection, but all of them gave me freedom and power in my life. It was simple. It didn't depend on the outcome of the conversation. It didn't depend on the other person taking any responsibility. I didn't need them to apologize. It was the key to leaving the past behind me, to being fully present, and to having an experience of myself that reminded me that I had the power to create my life and my relationships. I love who I am today, and I know that I'm worthy of love. I'm able to express my love freely and let it flow through me. This is a powerful practice that I maintain to take responsibility for my life and keep the space free and clear for love to flow. This may not sound like a story of self-love, but I believe it's actually the core of it. We all have a story or experience of the past, with a voice in our head that tells us we're unlovable. It typically stems from childhood, and it tends to rear its ugly head when we're navigating our relationships with family, friends, and partners. There are a few ways that this shows up as a lack of self-love. First, we look outside ourselves for others to validate our worth and make us feel lovable, or we adjust who we are in an effort to please others. When we're not ourselves, we never know if someone loves us for who we really are. The reality is, without the foundation of self-love, no matter how much someone loves us, it's never enough to convince us that we're worthy of it until we believe that we're worthy exactly as we are. Secondly, we build walls to avoid hurt and disappointment, depriving ourselves of the very love we desire. Our inner voice says things like, people always disappoint me or abandon me, love doesn't last, my family doesn't love me for who I am, I can't trust people. It's the story that gets validated when we lose friends, when our hearts are broken, when our trust is betrayed. Fear darkens the possibility for love to shine and flow to us and within us. So we protect ourselves against the possibility of being hurt by finding ways to push people away, keeping them on the outside. The irony is that we're afraid of having the very thing that we want, so we sabotage it before it can happen. We trade the possibility of being hurt for the inevitable pain of depriving ourselves of love. Finally, we isolate and hide, carrying our burdens alone, and refusing to ask for help due to shame or fear that we won't get what we ask for. I spent much of my life hiding in pain, going it alone so no one could see how much I was hurting. Instead of reaching out for support, I isolated myself at the very time I needed to collapse into someone's arms and have them hold my pain and my grief until I could catch my breath to continue. What I realized for myself was that the root of this for me was my lack of self-love and feelings of unworthiness. My fear and lack of trust that if I reached out and someone wasn't there, or if my trust was betrayed, when I was so vulnerable, it would be more painful than handling it alone. I didn't want to risk pain and disappointment, so I chose to carry the weight alone. And here's the good news. No matter how high the walls we build to protect ourselves, or what lengths we go to isolate ourselves from the possibility of ever being hurt again, the beauty and magic of love is that it always remains available to us. In every moment, we can breathe it in, embrace it, and open our hearts to its power to heal and connect us. It's never too late to reach for love. Momentum gathers for whatever thoughts and actions we practice, so facing love again can feel daunting if we've been living in fear for a long period of time. This is where the practice of love comes into play, and it starts with a commitment to simply begin. Our fears often keep us resisting the first step toward love, but that's to be expected. We've been engaged in the practice of feeding our fearful thoughts and giving them power. Our awareness alone slows this momentum and creates an opening for the light to shine through. Unfortunately, we don't simply arrive to a place of enlightenment and remain there indefinitely free of challenges, fear, or suffering. We forget how we found our way into that state of being. We let old patterns creep in and neglect the very practices that help us embrace love. When I feel my light dimming, it's almost always because I've neglected the practices that work for me, or that I've been looking outside myself for love instead of generating it and being that presence in the world. I'd like to suggest another practice that keeps me returning to a state of love. As a child, I noticed that many adults around me had built up walls, had closed down their hearts in the fear of being hurt. When I was 8 years old, I made a promise to myself that I would keep my heart open, that I would trust the goodness in people, and I would keep loving and trusting even if I got hurt. I've remembered that promise that my 8-year-old self made, and I'm grateful to that courageous girl who knew I would need to remember her to honor my word all these years later when I've been tempted to protect myself or tame my big heart. So today I encourage you to make a promise to yourself, to the future you who will be grateful for it later. Here are some suggestions. Promise to stay true to who you are. Promise to stay true to your dreams, to take steps toward living your passion and purpose. Promise to keep your heart and mind open to possibility. Promise to keep your power and be responsible for loving yourself and creating a life you love. Promise to accept others exactly as they are and as they're not, and know that even when they hurt you, they're doing the best they can, and the pain they may inflict on you is never, ever about you. Promise to keep yourself free by staying willing to forgive, to leave the past in the past, and never be limited by what anyone else ever did or said to you. You will find the friends, relationships, purpose, and happiness of being you if you just stick to who you are. You will be hurt. No matter what you do in life, you'll be disappointed at times. But you'll learn from every heartbreak, and if you pay attention to the lessons and choose to stay open, to trust again, to be vulnerable to being disappointed or hurt, it will lead you to something better. And you can be sure that those who are loving you love you exactly as you are. You're strong enough and you're worthy of having, doing, and being everything you dream of. For the adults, I'd also encourage you to make a promise to your younger self. Promise to rediscover the child within, to connect with them and ignite some of the light you may have let dim through the years of disappointment and heartbreak. Promise to be gentle on the child that still lives within you, to speak kindly to yourself, and treat yourself with the same love and care as you treat your children and your grandchildren. Make a promise that you'll never decide it's too late to pursue the dreams the child you were planted long ago. Promise that until you take your last breath, you will surrender your fears before you surrender your passion, purpose, dreams, and the hope of love. Shouldn't we practice loving our divine selves as much as we've ever loved? If we imagine love as an energy or a presence flowing in the space around us, shouldn't we focus on filling ourselves with love and letting our own light shine as brightly as we can? This way, we always know love, and we always have love in our lives, regardless of what's going around us that we can't control. And we can become the very presence of love to transform the world around us. What if the only path to share our love and unique gifts with the world begins with unconditional self-love? What if the love we seek to find can only find its way to us if our inner light is bright and unobscured by fears and negative opinions of ourselves? What if we were born as love and our only purpose is to return to that state of being? I invite you to close your eyes and join me in a space of meditation as we affirm our love for ourselves. As I speak the following words, please direct them inward and fully absorb them. I am an individual expression of God, of the oneness and source from which we all come. I am a miraculous being, one of a kind among billions of people who have existed or will ever exist. I am magic, capable of shining my light in the world, capable of generating love for myself and others, and being the very presence of love. Everything that has happened up to this point is now in the past and no longer has power over the life I choose to create. I release what no longer works for me, including any thoughts that I may have had in the past of feeling not good enough, or too much, or not worthy of love. There is only now, only this moment, and in this moment, anything and everything is possible. There is nothing but a vast universe, nothing, no thing that is in my way of shining my light or in being, doing, or having anything I can imagine. I am perfect, whole, and complete, just as I am in this moment. I am stardust, made of the same elements as the vast and magnificent universe. Imagine a star in the sky that is shining just for you, the star from which you came. Feel its light shooting into your heart, expanding to fill your chest, and spreading to your arms, up your neck, into your head, and down into your stomach and your legs, slowly spreading to fill your entire body. Once you feel the light through your entire body, imagine it becoming brighter and brighter. There's no limit to how bright it can become. It just keeps getting brighter. Now imagine that light is love, pure, unconditional love, more powerful than any love you've ever felt from anyone or for anyone. And as you feel the warmth of that love, think of your name and hold it gently, speaking to the child in yourself. With your name and the magic and power of your star in mind, I invite you to say these words aloud after me, speaking to yourself. I love you.
I love you.
You are enough. I will always take care of you.
I will always take care of you.
You are worth it.
You are worth it.
I forgive you.
I forgive you.
I release the past.
I release the past.
There is only now.
Only now.
Love is all there is.
Love is all there is.
There is nothing to fear.
There is nothing to fear.
I love you just as you are.
I love you just as you are.
Now, keeping your eyes closed, take a deep breath. And as you do, imagine that all the air around you is pure love. Your lungs are breathing in love itself. Take a few slow, deep breaths and let the light of love fill your entire being. As you continue breathing deeply, know that the presence of love is always available to you, like the air around you. Breathe it in and know that you're worthy of receiving it. Breathe it out and know that you are a powerful creator, expanding the love to all those around you through your very presence and breath. And any time you feel like you've lost that light, know that it's as simple as choosing to take a fresh breath and pull it back inside you, always into yourself first. Then practice breathing it out to those around you. We spend this life beginning again and again. We are never lost. It is never too late. Whatever happened in the past is gone. There is only now and that first deliberate breath. Namaste, blessed be, and so it is.
We are the rain and the rainbow. We are the moon and the moon. We are the river and the rivers flow. We're the light of the world. We are the grass and the green leaves. We are the earth and the earth seeds. We are the love that the world needs. We're the light of the world.
May we pray together. As we bow our heads in prayer, we collectively raise our hearts up to a place where hope is born and the power of unconditional love sustains us in our lives. We pray for a sense of peace that might give us the strength to unconditionally love ourselves. We pray for a glorious message that might guide us on our way in sharing unconditional love to each other. On this magnificent day, our hearts are also drawn to those around us and those around the world who may not see the ability to feel peace and love. We pray for the refugees in different parts of the world searching for a life worth living. We pray for the innocent victims of senseless crimes in our nation, on our streets, and in our homes. We pray for women and mothers who in their times of need may need the services of kind organizations like Planned Parenthood at a very time in their lives that those services are being taken from them. We pray for members of the LGBT community who struggle within themselves and often struggle at the hands of others. We pray for the men and the women who serve in the armed forces of this great nation. And we offer our gratitude for their continued sacrifices around the world, allowing us to gather together and know the feeling of freedom. We pray for the leaders of our country. And we pray for the leaders who aspire to be the leaders of this great nation, that their hearts and their minds and their eyes might be opened to the knowledge that our greatest needs are needs of unification, and that the divisions that exist in our lives and our societies needs to grow much smaller and smaller and smaller. Today we shared and heard a beautiful, beautiful message of love. We speak of hope and we speak of peace. May we keep those messages in our hearts throughout this day and as the days that come and the weeks that come, as we live a life of gratitude for who we are and express our gratitude for the blessings that we have and the blessings that we know will come to us. May peace and hope and love be with each and every one of us. Amen and amen. May we pray a little bit more. There is a dear part of this prayer that must be shared in this space. We focus on others. We must focus on those within our own community, those closest and dearest to us. We raise up in a prayer Eleanor Bennett, who is in need of your prayers and your thoughts and your kindness. And if I'm able to visit in your heart and in your thoughts. For those that are so moved today and know of those in your lives, in our community, who you wish to call their name into this space and raise up in the support of love. Please call their name into this space now.
Brendan.
May peace be with us all. Amen and amen.
Come forward to light a candle of healing, comfort, and peace to those we hold in our prayers. I invite you to consider also lighting a candle of unconditional love for yourself today, to honor the magic and miracle that you are. As a safety reminder, please extinguish the stick in the flame instead of handing it to the person next to you. There's some sand to do that. As you place the stick in the source flame to light your candle, remember your power to be the source that creates a light within you, and remind yourself that you are the very presence of love. Next to the candles are bowls of sacred water brought together from around the globe by this community during the Gathering of Waters, much like the way we gather our love and energy here today to create a sacred oneness in our shared experience. I invite you to drop a stone, to release a burden, to forgive yourself or someone else, to ask for forgiveness, to receive help, or to release something from the past that you've been holding on to. The waters represent the love of the greater community that will gently guide your stone and surround it with love as it finds a new place to rest. Please come forward now in silence and reflection.